Conversations about mental health have been on the up in recent years, and what we've learned is that it has never been more important to make sure we look after it. We know our mental health can be impacted by a number of things, but have you considered the effect your financial well-being could be having on you? I'm with Matt Feller and Ian Leverington from Evelyn Partners again to discuss the link between the two for this episode of Money Talks. Their expertise lie in investment management, and Matt is particularly focused on ensuring a consistent approach to both physical and mental health and well-being. So, Matt, how would you define financial well-being?
Probably badly, so I'll rely on AI to define it. So a recent search, financial well-being refers to a state where an individual has stability, security and freedom to make choices about their financial resources, allowing them to achieve their goals and aspirations. It encompasses various aspects, including financial stability, financial security and financial freedom. Nicely
put. Thanks, AI.
Thanks, AI.
Yeah. Would you agree, Ian, with that definition of it?
Yeah, I think so. Matt and I were chatting earlier. It is a luxury afforded to us in middle-class first world countries, but it's nonetheless it is important that anybody should feel comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so talking about the link between mental health and financial well-being, how would you define that or describe that?
I would say for a vast majority of people, intrinsically linked. I mean, some of the known causes of poor mental health is stress, and financial stress can be a significant contributor to that. And I think, from keeping people awake at night to worrying where the next pay packet's going to come from, I think is incredibly impactful on mental well-being and just feeling hopeful for the future. And I think, I've been quite open about my struggles with mental health, and certainly during the second series of those when I didn't feel I could work, despite having a very good job and on paper all of the trappings of a very nice life. It amazed me, and it still does, how much of my life was predicated on the basis that I'd still be earning money 12 months from now.
Yeah.
And you realise how much is based on the fact that you take it for granted that you can have a holiday and you can cover Christmas and you can go out to eat and drink meals, and that's all based on the fact that paycheck will keep coming in. As soon as you face not being able to work, it's I think, as Warren Buffett often says, people only show who's naked when the tide goes out. And I think that is certainly the case in this. There was a lot of expectations. So I think, it's intrinsically linked.
Yeah, absolutely. So the importance was very much highlighted in what you just shared there. So how much should we prioritise our financial well-being in our lives?
To whatever degree you feel is important to you. And it's very easy to say, and as Ian touched on before, it's the luxury of having an amount of wealth to prioritise. For individuals who are merely looking at where the next meal's going to come from, it's a luxury to try and prioritise your financial well-being. I'm sure they'd love the option to do so. But I think for those that can, it is important to save for the unexpected, to ensure that you are making the right decisions with your money, for yourself, for your family, for as we touched on in the previous segment, on for the earth, to make sure that there is something that if life takes an unexpected turn, as life is almost guaranteed to do, you don't have a financial burden that's adding additional strain onto what already is a difficult time.
Yeah, absolutely. Ian, what are your thoughts on prioritisation of financial well-being?
There is a tendency probably in Jersey, your financial well-being is always a little bit higher than you are at the moment. I think adapting and understanding how much you need rather than how much you want is probably very important. So understanding what your wealth is. Well, money should give you freedom to do other things in life. You earn money so that you can spend time with your family, so that you can enjoy your island, you can enjoy your spare time. And there's always the risk that you're trying to get too much money and have too many things at the expense of your own mental health and the mental health of your family as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really interesting perspective on this discussion. Okay, so again, the importance is really evident through what you have both shared. So what are the easiest ways, now I accept this could be subjective to every individual, but what are the easiest ways to maintain good financial well-being? So best practice, good hygiene. What are your thoughts on that, Matt?
So I think it's fundamentally based on having a clear idea of what you have and what you don't have. Taking as much as possible a longer term view on that rather than the desire we have to have something now and to hell with the costs. To try and break a really sort of human characteristics. Humans are irrational. We don't make rational decisions. We're not computers. So I'd say a vast number of us have got a savings account, if we're lucky enough to have one, but also a credit card, which makes no sense whatsoever because this one's costing you 20% and this one over here is earning you at best 5%. But there's an emotional comfort at times in that. So I think really looking at your decisions and making sure that they are right. If individuals do find themselves in the wrong side of financial well-being, so poor financial health, speaking to someone about it. It's often perceived, I think, that there are no solutions other than earning more money, where actually there is support in this island, especially for individuals who find themselves in poor financial health, and it often just starts with getting everything out in the open. Yeah. So I think for me, save what you can when you can. Don't expect or take it for granted that you will always be in the position you're in. Prepare for the unexpected as much as possible, and yes, just try and plan and budget.
Yeah. Ian, do those insights resonate with you as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Financial regulators in the UK are trying to make sure that people who aren't directly involved in finance have a better understanding of how the finance works. A really funny example, and she'll kill me for telling you this. My wife doesn't like to pay off the credit card at the expense of having some money in the bank, so if you get a bit of a bonus. She likes to have the money on deposit. It's there if I need it. But you're paying 20% on your credit card. But I know, but I want some savings. I want a pot that I can tap into. And I said, well, isn't it better not to pay 20% first? It's the dislocation in money because of a lack of understanding of how the financial system works can lead to, I think, a lot of stress, certainly less money.
Yeah. I mean, something that I've really taken from our conversations today is there's a lot of emotion involved in finance and money. So when you do fall on bad times, that is absolutely heightened. So I think it would be good to discuss where people can go for help if they find themselves, like you said earlier, on the bad side of financial well-being. Or if they're worried at all, what are kind of avenues that you'd recommend? Matt, we'll start with you.
I think generally whatever your worries are, they're always undoubtedly better shared than kept within you. And there are some amazing organisations locally, not least Citizens Advice, but also the Community Savings Bank over here, and a number of others who can really help get this out into the open. And I would just say to anyone listening, conversations with either a bank or indeed a utility company, they aren't great big capitalist monsters who are looking to either cut your supply off or throw you out of your home. They all will work actively with you to have a sustainable, manageable repayment plan. Ian and I both came into investment management via banking at different times. Banks don't want to repossess people's houses. Banks don't want to throw people out on the street. It is the last possible thing. What they want is an open dialogue that allows the situation to be managed. So often we see that people will stick their heads in the sand and hope it goes away, and it doesn't. So I think be open, look at what's around us. But I think we also have to appreciate that if you're not feeling particularly well mentally and financially, getting support can sometimes be equivalent to climbing Everest. You know, there is a wonderful support from our government, but often it's behind a counter and a form and a process, and at times it feels like a code word and a wink and it's very difficult to find. So I think find someone, especially community savings or citizens advice, that can take you on that step.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it might be important to touch on money worries can also bring a lot of shame for people. So that importance of reaching out is really important. Absolutely, you should do it. Would you agree?
Completely, and especially in an island like this where we're living basically in a small village. And I think if we look at the last 5 years, we've gone from a period of historically ultra low interest rates to now almost normalised interest rates. And I think, you know, Jersey is a typical Anglo-Saxon or British community where your self-worth is tied to do you own your own property. So there's almost a sort of renting is not seem to be the ideal option, where in the majority of Europe, the vast majority of people rent. So 80% of people rent in Europe compared to probably the opposite in the UK. So I think you've seen a situation in the last 5 years through the financial crisis and Brexit and various other things where interest rates have suddenly gone up. Now, in Jersey, that means I think that the people's disposable money has gone down quite dramatically as those interest rates have gone up. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to have their house repossessed, thank goodness, more so for the reasons I've talked about before. But it does mean that the niceties of life that they got used to might not be there anymore. Yeah. And I think the drive to keep up with that identity that you've built for yourself and that people know you for, that can really exacerbate the financial issues as well. So it takes a huge amount of self-strength and determination to go, the situation I'm in now is very different to the one I was in a few years ago, and I need to, you know, cut my cloth or do things differently to get through this period so that actually we'll still be here and to push on in the future. Yeah, absolutely. Ian, do you have any thoughts to add?
Really just to reiterate, sometimes the finance sector gets kind of a bad rap, but most of the people I've worked with over the years are always willing to help if a client needs to talk to somebody about their financial assets. It doesn't really matter how much you've got. People can become stressed by it, can become disconnected by it, and your financial advisor or your investment manager should be a person by your side who can actually try and relieve you of some of those stresses, to talk you through where your assets and liabilities are, to talk to you about how much you spend, for example. Any good investment manager or investment company will want to understand how much you've got coming in and how much you've got going out. So it's really not a bad place to start. I mean, I guess 50 years ago you go and speak to your bank manager and say, this is what's going on in my life. Nowadays, there's a broader net of support from the finance sector, and I think the finance sector understands that to be considered a good business going forward, that's part of our service. Yeah. Absolutely.
I would add, I mean, I think humans don't particularly like to think much about the future, especially the future of retirement and you know, ultimately what's going to happen into retirement and old age. We do quite a lot of work with clients regarding cash flow planning and sort of expectations and what you need to do today that's actually going to bear fruit in 20 years' time. But again, going back to we're talking about the luxury of people who have money and who find themselves in some area of financial difficulties. Obviously, there's a very large side to society in Jersey that doesn't have liquid assets, and I think there's support available for those people as well. And it does start with a conversation. Nothing really gets sorted by avoidance.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, a really important discussion we've had here, and maybe one that isn't talked about enough, or the links aren't made enough. So I thank you again for your wonderful insights and perspectives on this really important topic, and thank you for joining me today.